Aloha mai kākou, and welcome to another episode of the Hawaiian Music Archives Oral Histories Project. Today we're going to be talking about the ukulele. The ukulele, which has a beautiful history, nearly 150 years old, with builders such as Augusto Diaz, Jose do Espirito Santo, and Manuel Nunez, to contemporary luthiers such as Kamaka, Kanilea, and Koaloha. Today, my esteemed guests, would be Mr. Michael Upton, who is the founder of Kala Brand Music. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Dave Cafiero, who's joining us, the Chief Operations Officer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
We're so excited to be able to have you here because the story of the ukulele is really one that continues to be told. It's not only a story about yesteryear, but also a story that continues to unfold. And as a result of that, the work that Kala Brand Music Company has done is really profound in terms of accessibility, affordability of the instruments, and the innovation and creativity behind what you do and the business that you have created. And it's such an honor for us at the Hawaiʻi State Archives to be here to be able to interview you and learn a little bit more about the history and the background of Kala Brand Music. So thank you once again.
You bet. It's great to be here.
So Mike, I know that you have a business background, you're passionate about the instrument, but let's hear a little bit about just your connection, your background, and your story and your love for music. Where did that start?
My dad was a jazz musician, put himself through college playing. He had his own combo, the Eugene Harry combo. But he played guitar and harmonica, but he also played ukulele. And so it was around, but it wasn't really anything I gravitated to because we just had a toy one around, and he had a Martin, which I think I destroyed, and so I had the toy. But anyway, musical family, and I grew up playing a little guitar. But when I was, 10, 11, he had brought home a harmony bass from the flea market and the Kalamazoo amp, and so that was what I found that I really enjoyed. And then listening to the Beatles and Paul McCartney, I kind of gravitated towards the lower register. So I would consider myself a bass player, not I can play a little ukulele, but musical nonetheless. And my dad taught me a lot of interesting. He grew up in Minnesota, so it was a lot of Swedish and Danish folk songs and kind of little ditties, whatever was on the radio. So,
and home for you was at that time?
I grew up in Sunnyvale, California. Right, I played as a kid in the orchards, the apricot orchards, which are now Apple Computer. It's
really?
right at Cupertino, Sunnyvale border. So right in the middle of Silicon Valley. Yeah, in the early '60s.
Wow. So you have this contact point with Dad introducing you to some music. You destroyed your dad's Martin ukulele.
Yeah.
You start playing bass a little bit and so forth. I mean, is that where did things go from there? Did you
played in bands, loved Led Zeppelin and the Beatles, Cream, and Jimi Hendrix, all the kind of the hard rock. That was what I did, and blues. But anyways, it was always music. And then my dad having the jazz background, I always had that in the back. A lot of different influences because at the time, radio, they played anything. You didn't have all these segments and segregation in music. It was just all music.
You just played everything
together, And my sister played. We played piano growing up and guitar.
Yeah.
I played woodwinds in school. So I mean, there was instruments around harmonicas, and you just were kind of around that. So that was, that's good to kind of help a kid along, spur on the interest.
And we'll talk about this a little bit later too. I mean, because I see some connection here with your passion for music and all of the amazing educational opportunities and the contributions that Kala Brand Music has been doing around the world to advance educational efforts as well. So that actually stems to the core of your experiences with music and having the instruments around and of course Dad and others teaching you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the right time to elaborate in that right now, but the educational aspect of ukulele for everyone. I mean, is so, there's such an opportunity there, and we've seen that over the last 20 years, how it's, once it gets into a school program, how much positive impact it can have.
Absolutely. So you start playing a little bit of music. Eventually, you fall in love with this instrument, and out of this comes a unique opportunity for a company. Tell us a little bit about how Kalabrand Music came to be.
Well, I lived in Hawaii from 1989 to 1994. I met my wife here, got married. We lived in Kailua. I lived right at the back gate of the Marine Corps Air Station. And then I moved, my wife's brother, she was nannying for the family that had 4 kids. They moved to Lanikai, and they had a small place where we then moved and hung out there. And so I was kind of introduced to the ukulele back then. And then when we moved back in 1994 to the mainland, I started working for the Honer Company. And long story short, a few years later, I started selling to Hawaii, and it was obvious that ukulele was a product that they said, well, if you have ukulele, people here would love that, and you could do some business here.
And so this is around
this is 1998.
98.
They had one model of soprano ukulele, so I started selling that, and then it was like, well, everybody's telling me that they want more concert, tenor, different sizes. So I told the people at Honer, I said, we need to make ukulele. And so I came up with this name called Lanikai, because I was living in Lanikai. So in 1998,
well, that's a connection because you were living out there.
Yeah, I came up with that name and just started making the first Lanikai ukuleles, which were, you know, it took a couple of years to dial them in and get the intonation right, but they started selling because the price was very affordable. And at that time, there wasn't, I think the Hilo brand was around, but it was just a soprano model. So there wasn't anything affordable available.
Well, I do remember during that time period, and I think this is a testament to the work that, you know, Kalabrand Music has done over so many years, and even prior to establishing that company, is that there was a time back when I associated the import ukuleles with, you know, kind of rough stained woods and not great intonation and high action and those challenges, and then those early instruments, certainly from Lanikai, was that front end when I began to see that these, you know, the instruments played well and the intonation was there. And so you probably are, I'm assuming, carrying in some of both your background as a musician and your eye as a businessman into some of that.
Well,
I developed that.
I'd met one guy that I met specifically on the Big Island at Music Exchange, Collier Thielen. And he loaned me a few good instruments, and I was able to bring those overseas to show those luthiers, this is what an ukulele is built like, sounds like. They had just thought it was a small guitar. So they used the same thicknesses, guitar tops, big braces, so they overbuilt them. And the intonation is a little different for ukulele. So working on getting the proportions right, the bracing right, and convincing them that they could thin the tops down and they wouldn't crack.
Right.
And so all that took a couple of years to really dial it in, but that was the earliest work I did that I think paid off, because then once those instruments played in tune, they sounded good. It just kind of spiraled, you know, just kind of took off from there. You know.
So all of this was under the name Lanikai.
That was all Lanikai, and so for 1998 to 2005, until I started Kala, I was working for them and developing this line, and it was, you know, we were bringing them right into containers of them into Hawaii, and I was storing them at Ko'olau Ukulele when they were in Kaneohe, way up in the rafters, you know, and the stores would come and pick up their order, and we were just like, it was just crazy how much was selling, you know, it was just booming.
Wow. So at this time then, you knew Dave already?
Yeah, because I'd known Dave since 1994. We met when I moved back from Hawaii, you know. We believe it or not, he's a former pastor.
Oh, beautiful.
And we showed up to the Easter service that
Yes.
he was doing. And I got involved and started playing, leading the worship and stuff.
Sure.
But we connected back then over music, and then 4 years later, doing this project with Lanikai, and we would talk all the time. So he's tracked from the very beginning of this. He's tracked with me, although not working at that time with me. He knows the history
Wow.
better than anybody.
So you see this growth that's happening with the work that you're doing with Horner and Lanikai, and there's more and more interest, different sizes, I would imagine, and then at some point, your transition and Kala Brand Music Company is born. What happens in that transition?
Yeah,
How did that come to be?
I could elaborate in great detail, but basically we were working out of Santa Rosa, California. That was the warehouse and distribution facility. But it wasn't just Lanikai. We were selling Sabian cymbals, Vic Firth sticks.
Right.
We sold all kinds of other musical products. It was, and ʻUkulele was just a small part. But they wanted to move the whole operation down to Corona, California, down to LA. And nobody that was working there, 6 or 7 people, wanted to move. I certainly did not want to move at that point to LA.
Down there.
And so they said, well, we're moving anyway. And they lost their whole staff and in essence lost their business on the West Coast for, it never reopened. And so I packed up 16 semis worth of gear because I was also managing the warehouse as well as selling.
Right.
And packed it up. They shipped it down there, and at the same time, I was already working on starting Kala because I knew that this thing was just taking off. I could see what was behind it, and the demand was growing on the mainland. And so I already had Kala planned, and I left in June of 2005, and I got my first container into Honolulu. And I had this little warehouse off Halava Street over by the airport, and stuffed that container, 40-foot container of ukes into the warehouse, and just started, because I had all this, I knew all the stores, I had already been selling to them.
Yes.
And also Roy Sakuma was a great supporter, and the Good Guys Music and Easy Music, and these guys were just and still great customers to this day.
Wow.
So a shout out to, I want to remember Clay Nakasone from Good Guys, who's passed on, but him and Roy Sakuma were really the biggest encouragers, because I was like, okay, is this going to work or not? And they were just saying, yes, you can do it, And they knew what was going on, and they said they'd support me if I made this switch to this other brand, And then what happened was, then I got served papers.
Oh my!
by my former company, and they were suing me because what actually I started the company. It was Lahaina Guitar and Ukulele was the first name, and they said, oh, their argument was, well, Lahaina sounds too much like Lanikai, and I was like, really? Come over to the islands and ask people if there's any confusion between those names. But anyway, it's still, I was like, oh gosh, what do I do? So I had to sell all these Lahaina ukes, which I still have a few of those laying around. And then I had worked out a deal, because I just wanted to get out of this, to where I paid them a percentage of those sales for a full release, and I changed the name to Kala.
I see.
So they had 3,000 ukuleles at a factory overseas with Lahaina on it that they had to sand.
Oh my goodness!
Sand down to put Kala.
To put Kala on there,
which they did. So that was it. All worked out great because I got a full release and I could just do my business.
Right.
And so Kala was born out of that adversity, and actually started on July 4th.
Wow.
That was the official release day. So I always say that was my independence.
That's your Independence Day.
Independence Day.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, and then it just kind of went viral, and I was just coming, because living in Petaluma, I was just coming over every 6 weeks to kind of help out. I had one guy doing deliveries and you know, working on ukes and taking care of the business, but I had to keep coming over because to sell and to help out and to help receive containers. And finally, you know, I hired some more staff over here, and then I hired some sales reps on the mainland, and they, you know, so we started doing business and had a small warehouse in the mainland, and it just was clear it was all I could do to keep up with the demand. Wow, and it just exploded.
I think it's so fascinating how, you know, how loved that instrument is and the journey that you know, that you kind of walk through there. I mean, I know for you, Dave, as well, at that time, a pastor looking in and knowing Mike and seeing some of those struggles, you know, that he was going to, and then now Chief Operating Officer for the company.
But it sounds like a lot of hats, but. Before transitioning to me at all, maybe when you mention that lawsuit, you might want to tell Shawn why you named the company Kala, because there's a connection there, you know. Yeah, having been through this and observing at that time as a pastor and a good friend, we were very good friends even then, listening the struggle and the adversity, because you hear this happened, but there's that process that's very painful. That was quite a challenge what he went through, but. As a result, I think your name is significant. The name of Kala is significant.
Yeah, I had to come up with a name within a 2-day period, like, because it was so. I just had to do it very quickly, the way it worked out, and I was racking my brain. Well, what I had a picture in my mind that it was 4 letters, and it was just going to be kind of an oval thing. So I was looking, you know, online at Hawaiian words dictionary. What these meanings were, and I just couldn't think of anything or just see anything that resonated. And then I was talking with a friend, another pastor, Dennis Salas, who's pastor at Hope Chapel, Waikiki, and he started talking about this thing, the kala or the kala, and he explained the ceremony and the way that people would resolve differences, and the main component was this reconciliation or forgiveness, and that just resonated, because I was pretty upset at my former company and some of the people there. I felt like I was wrongly being attacked for something that I didn't do anything wrong. Anyways, that was it's always a reminder to let things go and kind of release it.
Yes.
You know, I think it's actually a prayer of release was the kala. And so I thought, okay, that's good, you know, but I always forget to say kala, so it's kala. If you're from the East Coast, they say kala.
Kala, oh my gosh.
I cannot change them from that, so, but, you know,
eraser board
I'm
scratch.
just so used to saying kala, but anyway, that word, that resonated with me, and I thought, okay, this is it. And so they changed all those, I think it was 3,500 ukuleles from Lahaina to Kala.
Wow.
And then it kind of just took off from there. And I'm glad that happened at the beginning and not later on, because it was easier just to go through that and get it done, you know.
What a beautiful story. And I mean, and a beautiful reminder, right, of the importance of kind of moving on and forgiveness and, you know, the health behind that as well. Right? So.
It's kind of like a poison or something toxic that it's good to get out.
It's good to let go
and release it, you know. So it's always a good reminder. So thank you for reminding me, because I used to have to explain to people what kala meant, because they were always curious, you know.
So you take some of those trips over to China and the factories and other places, or is that more another team?
My job is to oversee all the department leaders in the company, and I'll specialize. I think from the beginning, Mike specialized in the production, because when he started, that's really what it was about, getting good instruments, talking to the dealers. A lot of these instruments came about because of the desire and the experience of Hawaii ukulele dealers, who really told Mike what they wanted. And but later on, he would bring me along, and I would ride shotgun in the areas that I had no background in production whatsoever. My background, Mike mentioned that we met when I was a pastor. I started that when I was 30. Prior to that, my undergraduate degree was in criminology, and then I got into sales, selling medical equipment and education. And then even during that 12-year period, that really from the very beginning, Mike came to my very first Easter service that I planted. So we did this together for 12 years.
Wow.
But during that 12-year period, I was a bivocational person, which meant that I was working. By the time I left ministry and handed it over to another church, I had 4 kids, and that 4th child I went back into business. But even during that 12 years, I was in business selling, and management was the bulk of my background, but no production experience whatsoever. I mean, if anyone had told me that I would be spending close to 16 years making ukulele and selling ukulele, my head would probably fall off my shoulders. I wouldn't have imagined it. So one of the things that I realized was that we needed to have lessons, and how do you make that accessible? So it was about 2012, I was in Maui, and I met a guy named Wayno. I think it's Maui Surf in Kanapali. And I was in a surf shop that had 150 square feet of space. And this gentleman had an ukulele on every little nook and cranny. And I was talking to him, and he had our instruments. He was one of our dealers, and I didn't even know that. And he was a character, and he was playing, and he would do a 2-minute ukulele lesson. And it was just a cash printing machine of just selling ukuleles all day long. And he told me he was making more revenue selling ukuleles than his snorkel and his board rental. And the light bulb went off, and I thought, how can I take this guy and put him in the box? Because when I would deal with our surf dealers, they would say, well, I don't know anything about music. And I would say, listen, you don't need to be Jake Shumapakuro or like Yo-Yo Ma. Everything's in the box. So what we created was this online lessons for every level of music development. And we get cool artists that would represent a cool new model that would teach people. We direct them to the site. And then we created a Kala app. So there's a tuner on the app. And it's almost like a Kala karaoke ukulele app that's on that same app. And so we've tried to create that type of stuff for our entry-level people. So my production focus was more on the beginning instruments.
Surf off the Waterman concept, because the plastic ukulele, I always loved the Macaferis. And you go online and you can see the blueprints of the Macaferis. So we patterned, I said, this thing sounds amazing. And let's use those. And so they braced it the same way. Now the material's slightly different than what they were using back then. But that ukulele has done some incredible things. And I think we were ambitious, and we ordered, it was a ridiculous amount. We ended up with
overly enthused.
An extra, I kid you not, I think it was 22,000 ukuleles at the end of one year, and we're like, oh my gosh, how did we have why did we order this many? And we just were like, we didn't want to hold on to that
How
many.
did we do that?
So we did a Facebook contest for schools, and we ended up donating. At that point, it probably was
$25,000 worth of.
No, it was over 15,000 instruments to schools, to seed schools, and we were like, well, let's do this. We were in a financial position where we felt comfortable to do that, and we seeded over 200 schools with 30 to 40 instruments. We also partner with Leo Daquiog and Jake Shimabukuro's helping him with Music for Life and just different enterprises.
Fantastic work, yes.
Yeah, on the island. And we did and this was several years ago, but one by one got the Waterman in all.
Every public library
I
in
don't
state.
know, 51 or 52.
Leo told me that it was in every.
Everyone
every
has
state,
got
everyone.
the Waterman that you can check out. So that was just kind of a cool thing that I thought, that because we've done libraries, kind of a lend program on the mainland, but I thought it's great that it was here, and that it was all the libraries. I thought, wow, what if we could get all the different states, get them in libraries? It's like, that's why the education thing is so fascinating, because there's always new kids coming through the system. It's like such you look here, and ukulele is, I don't know if it's in every school, but it seems to be there, and the opportunities there for all the kids here. But it would make sense, because it's such it's the
Accessible.
state instrument, if you would say,
Yes.
you know, but you see, okay, how it works here, and how many great players there are here, and just how music's and people, like everybody, the way the singing, like to me, the voices here are so unique, and the tone quality of people's voices on the island,
It's amazing.
it's so beautiful. And I think because they, as kids, they just always, music was always there, and it was in their ear, and they were always encouraged to sing and to play. And where that, I don't see that as much on the mainland. It's like, you'll hear people say, oh, I can't sing, I don't have a musical bone in my body. And I think, no, you can sing.
It's a cultural thing.
It's more of a conscious thing where there people are reluctant to do that. Where I think here, it's like, people are much more musically, just because it's part of the culture.
Right.
It's cultural expectation.
That would be the biggest thing I would want to see on the mainland, is like just to get it in the school and give kids the opportunity when they're young, because then you're taking the fear and the inhibition away to sing or to you know, to play or anything. I think as you get older, you get like, oh, you don't want to mess up or look funny. And it's like, I think when you start them young, you take some of that fear away, you remove it, because they're still moldable and young enough to not maybe be so self-conscious, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, I know I have two daughters, and, you know, in the schools that they're at, I've seen many akala instruments in many a classroom down here as well. And so knowing that extent of your generosity and that reach to get those instruments into the hands of the kids, especially at that age, I genuinely believe it's so important, you know, to allow kids to be able to engage with music and just explore. And the ukulele is a perfect instrument to do that with, you know. And so the project in working with you know, Leo and you know, in the Music Foundation and so forth, I think is just it's a great idea, and it does get those instruments directly into the communities where you know, people can benefit from that. And I love the concept of being able to check it out like a book. You know, it's such a great idea. It really is.
Well, you know, another benefit that we didn't even realize when we donated all these instruments to the schools is that, you know, we had a few stipulations. You know, there had to be somebody who was teacher that was committed to teaching, and those ukes had to remain with the school. But the benefit is that since their child was playing that, whenever they moved on, they would want that instrument, so that.
We created an incubator.
It was kind of a marketing, ended up being a great marketing strategy that we didn't even think of. Because
that wasn't the intent, but it got there.
But it worked out well, and it kind of launched that.
It was meant for the surf community, and it ended up in education. But the unique part of the instrument was plastic. You could sneeze on it. You can get germs on it and clean it off.
And the way that worked out in the pandemic was huge, because we sold a ton of those, because people, they still had the music in the class, but they could wipe down you know, they could clean the ukulele, and that worked well for those circumstances, you know.
I mean, it was designed to go on the beach and not take your wood ukulele. It was designed to be part of it had to do with affordability, because we had these dolphins and shark instruments, and they were getting more and more expensive. We wanted something that was a little bit more of an approachable price point that could play, and that's where Mike's focus on instruments, the Macafari, was great. My focus was more, where is it going to go? It's distribution, but ultimately, it is in both environments. But the education point is great, probably the most significant, because we're creating more musicians, and that's part of our goal. You know.
Still, what I've seen is that there are very few comprehensive methods for ukulele. It's kind of
true.
There's all these learning styles and all these books. Well, you know, just here's how you do it. Here's the core. You know, but I think where it gets hung up in the traditional education system is that you want to teach them music and in note reading and theory and the whole thing, and the typical band and orchestra does that with woodwinds, and it's hard to get people to think in a different way.
Yes.
I know James Hill has got,
Yes.
and Peter Luongo from Canada have methods. I know James has got a method that you could plug into an education system that teaches them music, teaches them note reading, melody, harmony, a real pedagogy. That works, but that's tough to get into the in all the school boards to get them to change that.
And to get the funding to do it is part of the
But
challenge.
that would be my dream. Most of the success we've had in education is more grassroots, where the music program has gotten canceled or they just don't have one. And ukulele has been the great. It fits right in, because even a parent that has some musical experience, or say they play guitar, well, you can quickly adapt that guitar skill to ukulele and teach, and then there's music there. And a lot of it has been those types of situations.
And in the recorder, on the mainland, they were using the recorder. Where, and here they're using ukulele. So what's cooler? Ukulele is much cooler and more approachable.
Well, with ukulele, and you can also sing. With a recorder,
Yeah,
you got
you
it
can.
stuck in your
Exactly.
mouth. It's like, so that's been a
It makes
cool,
a lot of sense.
And then so many music dealers that we deal with that are already servicing schools in other areas, and either sheet music or orchestral instruments. They've taken the ukulele, and that's worked for a lot of their customers.
So with kala ukuleles, I noticed that there's so many different types of models, so many different types of materials that have been used, from the waterman, kind of synthetic or plastic style of materials and so forth, all the way to different types of, natural materials and woods with spruce tops and rosewoods, Hawaiian koa, and then some exotic woods like paduk and others, even for bindings and so many things. I think what Kala is doing is introducing to a broader community the kind of variety of woods that are available out there, both from a tonal perspective, but also aesthetically as well, which I think has been just absolutely beautiful. I notice you have a just stunningly beautiful Kala ukulele here that's quite unique. And in shape, in the depth of this instrument, as well as the porting, the sides, that sound port is quite unique. Can you share a little bit about this instrument?
Yeah, this is called the Revelator Nautilus. Nautilus, referring to the sound hole shape. And this was designed by luthier Pete Howlett of Wales. And I've known Pete for at least 10 years. And we started talking, and he was toning down his building and wanted to pass this instrument on, and so we got the rights to build these and had help from Pete. He came over for a couple months and taught our guys how to build this, and it's fairly unique. It's obviously a very slim body, but it's got almost all the sound of a regular ukulele.
Wow.
It's just got a lot of volume and punch. And some unique features, there's very minimal bracing, so it's a real resonant instrument. The body is CNC cut, and it would be thicker on the back. There'd be more wood mass, but the top is very thin and minimally braced, so it's got that robust sound. And the neck's all hand carved, so it's got a kind of a unique heel shape in that you can get if you so desire and can, get your hand all the way up to the top register to play.
Wow.
I wouldn't be operating up there, but there are a lot of great players that do, so.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about, some of these models, and this is a very uniquely designed one as well, is that what defines an ukulele? Like, when does it stop or start becoming an ukulele, right? I mean, we have a very different type of upper bout port on there. The thinness of that instrument is vastly different. The overall appearance is different. But yet, when you strum it, it has a big, bold personality, but it's a familiar sound, and it's that classic ukulele sound. I think that's one of the things that I've always loved about the ukulele, and it's so beautiful to see how Kala, as it begins to expand its offerings, that instruments like these also serve many different types of purposes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if your instruments are played, on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. I mean, there's
Could be.
kalas around the world that, I wouldn't be surprised at base camp that there would be somebody playing a kala ukulele.
Yeah, I know. I think we have distributors in 40 different countries.
Wow.
And there may be more than that. But yeah, I've heard people play, Baltic folk music on the instrument, and they would tune it different. So is that an ukulele?
Right.
It's but people can tune it how they want. But it's great that they're using that as a
Yes.
vehicle to play their own music.
Yes.
And, speaking of which, just a little plug for our website, because we just last week, we have a ukulele group worldwide directory that we started.
Wow.
We reached out and said, hey, just send your information and we'll post
It's the
your
largest
club.
largest
online.
ukulele club directory.
And
Is what we're
so
claiming.
That's
And
we
we
think it's true.
fantastic.
People, and so, that way people can check there if there's something in their town. And,
Sure.
That's great.
and
Just to
connect
get
It's a
people
resource.
connected.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Well, I'm dying to hear this instrument. You're going to play a little bit for us?
Yeah, let's-
Yeah, I mean, we'll hack away. We'll play a tune.
We're cheating because we were just asked to do this.
So again, we love the Beatles,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll attempt a little
Yeah.
Beatles
Okay.
tune here.
I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place where we just met. She's just a girl for me, and I want all the world to see we've met. Da 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 da. Had it been another day, I might have looked the other way, and I'd have never been aware. But as it is, I'll dream of her tonight. Da 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 da. Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. I have never known the likes of this. I've been alone and I have missed things and kept out of sight. But other girls were never quite like this. Da 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 da. Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again.
That's fantastic, you guys. I would
Yeah.
say you have to take that on the road, but you guys are already on the road. It's so good.
All right.
Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Wow, it really does have a full open sound.
And
within
the other
body.
thing that's a little unique is this has got two wound metal strings on it, like kind of baritone. So it gives it works for this instrument because it gives it that extra
A little more
punch that it
yeah.
needs. I love the sound of it. It's
is
easy to
great.
play too. So
Wow.
there's something else that just popped in my head. Is just I've seen the instrument in so many different situations where in hospital beds, people recovering from injury, with soldiers with
Yes.
PTSD, with people with mentally challenged people, where that just to put their fingers on the instruments and strum the
calming and
open
healing.
chords, and the sound is really, it's a healing sound.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a whole movement of in the health industry of music as a healing
Music therapy.
opportunity, music therapy, and it's just that goes just beyond anything when it's touching people at that level. That it's kind of a healing or a comforting instrument. It's something that anybody could strum in an open
Sure.
chord, and that chord, that
Yeah.
C6 chord,
Yeah.
is such a pleasing.
Yes.
It's like just the tuning of the instrument
Yes.
was almost heavenly,
Yes, it's so true. I'm so glad that you shared that. So this year is a big year for you folks,
Absolutely.
celebrating 20 years since the founding of ʻUkulele. Congratulations
Thank you.
on that. And we have a couple of those instruments, behind me. And I wanted to understand a little bit about how those instruments came to be and what they represent in this next journey that Kala is stepping into in this next season.
Yeah. Well, the one on the right with the poppies inlay, that was a photo. My yard's full of poppies in the spring, so I took tons of photos and shared them with the graphic department, and they came up with that for an inlay. So that was special. And then the koa on those instruments, I have quite a bit of koa, and so I just hand selected a bunch of koa, and we sent that overseas and made those instruments. So I guess it was, again, the nod of the Hawaiian koa being the Hawaii part of Kala that I started here, and this is such a focus because it's the epicenter of ukulele. But then the poppies were California poppies, from our California roots, because I'm from California.
Yes.
And I was always kind of had the two parts of the company, was always sensitive coming to the islands and trying to be respectful of, Kamaka, Kanilea, Koaloha, and I know all these guys, and they're wonderful people. And I was always sensitive. Well, I'm the guy doing the import, and maybe I didn't want to tread on anything that they were always doing, but just help be part of the story. And I think it's all worked out really well, And the other soprano behind you, I had a bunch of pieces of koa that were just too small for soprano tops, but I found that they were, I had an old kumalai, and I put that on there and said, wow, that's perfect for a one-piece top and back figure eight. And so we wanted to do, again, Hawaiian koa and patterned after a kumalai, but give honor to the exposition of
the Pan-Pacific Exposition, yes,
1916 in San Francisco, where we're right next to San Francisco.
Right.
So there's, again, California, Hawaii connection.
Right.
So those are unique in that there's just a limited amount of that wood. And so, I just love the look with the rope binding and just the old school headstock. And we had this kind of crest logo that from a long time, that if you zoom in, you can see the wrist wrestlers, because our hometown of Petaluma was known for the wrist wrestling championships of the world on Wide World of Sports. Every year they would show this in the Veterans Hall. So we wanted to give nod to Petaluma.
That's great.
And then, use the Hawaiian koa. So
I'm curious to know a little bit more about what your thoughts are for the next 20 years. What do you envision for Kala and the direction that you're heading now?
Well, we were talking about this yesterday, because I'm more of an opportunity guy, and I kind of, it's like a river. The water cuts its own path, So, I mean, we've got plans, and there's different models we're working on. But if the last 10 years have taught me anything, it's like expect the unexpected. Like, there's a lot of curveballs flowing our way and challenges. So. You have to. I think you have to. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps.
Yes,
it's a proverb that I read.
Love that.
And go, okay. There's something bigger at work here than me, and I want to be in tune with that, with Him.
I wouldn't say it's fighting, but it's being the devil's advocate. It's going back and forth, or how do we deal with this problem? And then all of a sudden, we're making lemonade out of lemons. It's kind of a corny statement, but that's what we try to do. I mean, for me, I try to be more of a planner, because I'm operations focused to a large degree, and sales focused and marketing focused. But I would agree with Mike that I think we would both like to get better, what we agree, in responding faster, or to seeing these opportunities faster and being able to execute on the opportunities.
Yeah.
Because of course you need to plan, but it's being able to. Things are changing so rapidly. Who would have imagined that you needed to stay home for a couple of years, and look what happened. The whole world just blew up. But interestingly, an interesting thing.
People were at home playing ukulele.
Right. But what happened? This is a good example of what Mike just mentioned. So COVID hits, but prior to that, we had our own store, And we also retail because a lot of our items are higher end and not all of our dealers buy them, but we didn't have the right system or ERP system that worked well with our Shopify store, and we worked really hard to create this new system. And because we figured a lot of times we're saying, let's dig our well before we get thirsty. That's the way I think to a large degree, because, hey, we've got something good here, and in terms of planning for the future, you'd have to create the structure for it. But I don't think we never would have. We knew that we probably need to be able to sell direct to a consumer, but we also didn't realize that COVID was coming. And when it came, we would have all went home. We would have been done because the state of California was so restrictive. And our dealers all had to go home. That was scary, that you couldn't run your store. So our online store just blew up. We never could have, we planned, we knew that we needed to have this structure in place, but we didn't know that this was going to happen. Sure. I think a lot of it, we're not as visionary as we'd like to be, but we try to be prepared and dig our well before we get thirsty, and have the things that we think we need to have for the now and the not yet.
It's really challenging. I mean, I want to always be positive, but it's a challenging time. You know, brick and mortar retail is really being hit hard and forced to adapt or kind of go away. So there's been a lot of stores that have gone out of business, but a lot of guys have stepped up, and you know, a lot of things are online now, and that you just cannot ignore that. And social media, that's been the biggest thing, is you've got products and you need pictures, you need to get the information out there.
Content.
Because not everybody's coming into stores anymore. That pattern has changed, where now people are looking visually online on a screen, and how do you present yourself the way they can see it on mostly on a phone. I mean, and not even a computer. I mean, they're looking on their phone, and you got to present a little tiny ukulele on a tiny phone and make it look good and tell the story. So that storytelling is changed a little bit, you know.
And I can imagine that the company over time obviously has grown, but the needs and the staff that you're bringing aboard has also evolved, right? Because I know when I went to visit you at NAMM, that there was a team of people that was doing audio documentary, video documentary, that was going around and actually capturing some of the artists that were representing Kala there at the booth. And I thought to myself, this operation is very well thought out, clearly, because you're capturing everyone's there. It's a big investment, but you're also utilizing, to your point, the opportunities of that gathering of all of these, you know, National Association of Music Merchants getting together, and the musicians are there and all of these things. I thought, wow, how beautiful is it that you know, have the scope and the bandwidth to be able to do that, and the team that you're pulling in.
We wrestle all the time with carrying that. We've had to downsize and shift the types of people we have here, but I've always contended for having a creative force, because we're telling a story.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people making ukulele right now. Although we feel very affirmed right now that you're recognizing what we do, you can't deny and ignore the fact that there's hundreds of ukulele importers, and a lot of them directly from China. And so what makes us distinctive is that we have to tell a compelling story visually, and of course this instrument is not only meant to be seen, it's clearly meant to be heard. So we have to have great audio, good stories. It needs to appear, as Mike said, it's got to, for me, I don't open my laptop anymore. I have one. I'm always on the phone, and most of our customers and the people who experience our instruments, so we have to create that type of situation.
And it's beautifully done. I mean, everything, to your point, like people are looking on their phones and so forth, but all of the photography that's done, the write-ups are detailed, you know, and we're so fortunate at the Music Archives to be able to partner with you folks. And thank you so much for the generous donation of these instruments. I mean, all of these instruments out here being a smattering of representation of Kala over the years, but being able to receive that at the Hawaiian Music Archives in perpetuity for education and research purposes, so we can ensure that the story of Kala continues to be told, not only in our generation, but 100, 200,
Wow.
and 300 years and beyond. All of this will be retained there for those purposes. You know, and you know,
So
and
cool.
we know here in Hawaii, we often say that we have a kuleana, you know, and which has multiple meanings, but the two meanings that I absolutely love the most is that kuleana means responsibility on one hand, but it also means we have privilege, you know. And so for us at the Hawaiʻi State Archives, you know, we both have the responsibility as a memory institution to be able to retain this information for our community, for research, for educational purposes, but we also have the privilege of carrying that forward for our community. And so the partnership that, you know, we have with you folks, and the extension to which, you know, Kala Brand Music Company has gotten its instruments all around the world, we are just so humbled and so grateful to be able to be working with you, Mike, and certainly.
Yeah, it was a
you
great
do as well.
reminder visiting the other day and seeing that wall of vintage instruments, and that's
Giant wall of instruments. Wow.
that's so awesome.
It's a whole other part of our company.
It's
a
completely
significant part.
different, but it connects with ukulele. But U-bass, you know, often people think it's ukulele bass, but I have to remind people this is not tuned like an ukulele, and really. My son came up with the name, and he said, because my last name's Upton, so he said, why don't you just call it the U-bass? And so this thing is, I see people that think, oh no, it's ukulele bass, and I just let that go. That's what U-bass stands for, and I never correct them. I just, but it's not really. But we have a lot of those artists, which, you know, because I play bass, I'm just into seeing how that functions. But for ukulele, you know, I'm just, off the top of my head, you know, 21 Pilots, Tyler Joseph,
Vance Joy.
Vance Joy, Walk Off the Earth. Like I mentioned, John Anderson, people that I didn't even know had or ukes were playing them. You know, I saw quite a while ago that Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers, you know, had a koa baritone, and he was on one of the either the Tonight Show or one of the late night shows with the kala playing a Christmas song.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, that was a surprise. So, I mean, some of them are people that we work with.
We just gave Bill Burr a left-handed revelator because he was on. I can't remember the name of the show.
Sonny and the Black Pack.
Yeah.
From, Howie Mandel
Howie
has
Mandel,
a podcast and a talk show, and his band leader has a custom kala.
Wow.
And so he was connected with Howie, and so we gave Bill Burr the instrument. And,
but there's different artists that. You've got people that have YouTube channels that have like thousands and thousands of followers. Some people, you know, my daughter who she's mainly in graphic design, and she's she's helping us with social media, but she made a significant point that there's just a lot of great artists that have several hundred of thousand. That having multiple artists that play our instruments that may not have a large following, but they still have influence. So there's a lot of ambassadors. That not all these people are artists. They're good players. But they're just kala fans, and it's very.
You know, we
very
just
helpful,
sent a U-bass, and I think there was an ukulele with it over to Jacob Collier in the UK. If you know Jacob, just a phenomenal musician, and he leads these audience choirs. If you've ever seen him do that, and some of them they just had the instrument somehow, and we just connected. Some that's kind of, it's been that way mostly.
You met Willie Nelson, and you tell that story. You met Willie Nelson. You were jamming with him. And
this
you gave
was
him a
a long time ago.
Yeah,
but it was a benefit at the Hilton Hawaiian Village for the tsunami victims in Japan, and I can't remember the year. Forgive me for that, but. So a friend and bass player for Bonnie Raitt, Hutch Hutchinson, introduced me to different people, and I had some instruments, and I put them on the bed of this hotel suite, and they were strumming. But Willie, I got a picture of him playing the bass, and it was so cool, just sitting on the bed like this little bass back then. People were like, "What's this?"
Yeah.
You know, but you know, yeah, there's been different folks that have come in and out, and. You know, I'll give a shout out to Boris in the Netherlands, Boris Mogilevsky, just a great player, good dude that travels all over teaching ukulele.
We have a wonderful teacher. We go on it, but we have a wonderful teacher, Lenny San Jose. He plays at the Oakland airport, any opportunity for him to perform, but he's a music teacher. He was a public school music teacher, and he was a great Kala fan and advocate, and he was playing our instruments, and he reached out to us, and we take him to every trade show, and and when we do lessons, because of that educational background, he'll play. And then my vision is, because it's just a lot easier to have other people tell the world that Kala is a good brand. So I'm hoping when we find those people, and when they authentically like the instrument, we love to be able to partner with them. That's very helpful for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can say that with although you may be from California, you certainly share in the heart and the aloha spirit. That we always talk about here, and I know your heart is near and dear to Hawaii as well. But it has really been an honor to have you both here and to be able to share firsthand with our viewers about the history of Kala Brand Music Company, but also just about the direction that we hope to see. We wish you continued success. We thank you so much for your time, for joining us, and for your generous contribution, not only in terms of the instruments, but really in terms of the story. It's our heart that we be able to capture these stories so that future researchers, educators can understand the backstory of the company and all the influences and all of the people that have come into the fold and come to enjoy music as a result of the work that you've put in. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mahalo.